Welcome to the EMN podcast, where philosophy meets disaster and uncomfortable truths meet the profession we call emergency management. This is not safe space thinking. This is the arena. Let's begin. Danny, my friend, good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing, brother?
Doing well. I guess for some people it's good afternoon. It's 8 o'clock in the morning. 8 o'clock, well, not quite 8 o'clock in the morning. It's 7:45 in the morning here on the West Coast. And we're about to jump into a little bit about criticism and emergency management and how realistically, like the great Teddy Roosevelt once said, it's not the critic who counts, but it's the man in the arena. And we'll update this a little bit. And that's the person in the arena. It's the person who steps into it and knows that they're going to get barbs, they're going to get darts, they're going to get arrows thrown at them. And at the end of the day, they are the ones that are stepping in and knowing that their time matters. What do you think of that? What do you think of that concept of it's not the critic who counts, but it's the person in the arena?
I think the person that, overall, the person that's actually doing the thing, right, is who we should be looking to who we should be listening and taking direction from. It's not the one who's sitting on the sidelines and critiquing what the people are doing. And we're getting a lot of that throughout the country right now, just in a lot of different spots. A lot of people out there like to talk, but they don't like to do anything. And so, but when you're listening to people and you're trying to get a direction of what to do next, it's better to get the direction and get some guidance from the people who have actually done it or are doing it. And yeah, it's the people who get up every day and go into it with their eyes wide open, knowing what they're going to do, fighting for what they believe in, wherever that may be. But in the state of emergency management, it's not the one who's sitting in the classroom and it's not have no experience whatsoever with no on the job duties to tell people what to do. When it comes down to it, the people doing the job, we want to hear from them, but we want to hear from people who are doing the job right. They're not just doing the job right, and who are every day going out there every day for the right reason. And so, I 100% agree with that. And as you said, changing the words up from man in the arena to person in the arena, that's, it is nowadays. It's definitely we're seeing more and more women in emergency management, and it's important too because they're leading the way in what they're doing. And there are a lot of great women leaders out there that we can learn a lot from. We're actually
Absolutely
every day who are leading the way. So I think that's great. But yeah, we don't want to be hearing from the especially right now with the way the media is, right? They try and twist things and turn things, and we don't know if what we're hearing is real or fake. They would want to say the fake news, right? But when you say fake, there's more than just what's being reported. There's what you're seeing too. Can you really rely on what's being seen?
Right, that's a whole other thing.
Fake everything, right? So
absolutely.
So those deep fake stuff that's happening more and more. So that's there's a lot going on, a lot to it, and that's why it's important that we're doing what we're doing.
I want to make a point here. When we talk about criticism, there's nothing wrong with taking a critical look at what you're doing. And what I mean by this is constructive criticism, right? When you're looking at something, say an after action report, right? Just the other day, LA County just released, the McChrystal Group took a look at the after action of what happened with the Palisades fire and the Eden fire. And we take a look and we learn from that, right? We're not saying, hey, don't be, we're not without having a critical look at what we're doing. And there's a difference, right? There's a difference between saying, hey, you did something. Let's take a look at this. Where can we learn from our actions? Fine with that, right? But there's a difference between that and somebody who is just throwing barbs just to throw barbs. Somebody who's never really been in the arena, right? And somebody who's never really been in that position just to cut someone down for the sense of cutting them down. And I've seen a lot of that, right? I'm seeing a lot of naysayers coming in just to be negative. And I think that's where we need to really differentiate the difference, right? It's not criticism in the sense of constructive criticism. How do we grow from something, right? We all make mistakes. Everybody. If you say you don't make mistakes, you're wrong, right? We can learn from those mistakes, right? Leadership, right, is about learning from those mistakes and learning from your mistakes in the past, all right, and instilling those mistakes, instilling those lessons, right, and doing this, right? Because the idea here is like leadership, right, is a choice, right? It's not a title, right? And so you're okay to take that, all right? And also, but right, when criticism here is like what I'm talking about, the critics that we're talking about are people who've never done it. And there was an interview by a newscaster who was talking to someone, and they were talking about this newscaster was going into this individual, talking all negative about him, and the individual looks back at the newscaster and says, "You have done nothing in your life except for read from a teleprompter." I was like, wow, right? That's what I'm talking about. That's the criticism of somebody who's never really done anything except for criticize, except for look, right? And that's what we're talking about here. That's the type of the person who we're speaking of. And that's the reflection that Roosevelt was talking about, right? He was talking about the people in the news, the people who were being critical of things that they don't know about. I think that's what we're talking about here. Dan, I want to bring this back to you on this here. What is the difference between the critics versus the doers that you're thinking about? The person who gets the mud on their boots, as Roosevelt would talk about.
I don't know. The difference mainly is that they're the ones that are not afraid to jump in and do that. It's those are there's the it's the viewpoint and the it's a shift in deciding, okay, I'm going to be the type of leader who just gives direction versus I'm going to be the type of leader that jumps in and actually and leads from example, right? They're not afraid to jump in there, get their boots dirty, as you the analogy that we're using here, and then lead from the front, right? Or they're not just giving direction; they're not giving somebody else something that they wouldn't be willing to do. But one of the things that we deal with right now in today's society is that we're talking about that being that critique, right? That negativity. Well, negativity leads the headlines. That's what people read. Like they look at that, whatever it may be, a video or an article or a clip, whatever it is, the negative tagline gets the views.
Mm-hmm.
So whether or not it's, even if the person knows anything about it or not, the idea of it's better to be negative than to be positive is what leads everything else. I mean, it's like it leads the attention, and it's all about attention, especially in today's society with media and the way to do
Clickbait,
things.
right?
How do we get attention? Yeah, it's clickbait, but that clickbait works.
Mm.
So it's like that. How we want to be that. We want to be that example. We want to lead by that example. We want to be the people that are doing it the way it should be done. But we're fighting against a society that almost is rewarded for the negativity that comes out and the negativity that's branded out there. So how do you fight against that? So we got to fight against that as well as be the person doing the job correctly.
So criticism can paralyze, right? Criticism can paralyze, and I think it's important to understand, like, because like you have to. I shouldn't say you have to, but in times you address that criticism, and if it's in the middle of a crisis, that could paralyze the response in some cases, right? And I think on the other side of it, courage to that demands vulnerability, right? And what I mean by this is, like, when you are in the midst of the fight, right, and you start getting those barbs thrown at you, the courage to stand up and defend that and to go through that Demands our vulnerability to be able to say, "Hey, I'm here. I'm in the midst of this, and I'm fighting for this." And you could throw those negativity towards me as much as you want, but I'm going to keep going, and I'm not going to shrink due to that criticism that you're throwing at me. And I think that's one of those things that true leaders have to go through, and we all go through it, right? We've all. I mean, look at. I mean, I've had my fair share of undue criticism thrown at me at times, and we just went through this just recently with some things, and I think that's really truly. I think that's really truly the mark of leadership when it goes through there. And I think Dan, you said this one time, and I really want to I want you to just get into this a little bit. You said one time, courage and vulnerability aren't opposites; they're partners. What did you mean by that?
Well, there's a misconception out there that says that you cannot, as a leader or as someone who's wanted to be out in front and show strength, that vulnerability is weakness. Well, ultimately, vulnerability is not weakness. If you look at any statistics out there, actual facts that showing vulnerability shows that you're human.
Mm.
It shows that you are more like the people that are most willing to follow you or most willing to be partners with you, to show that you're not better than them. You showing your vulnerability shows that you're just like them, and you're not afraid to show that. Those who pretend, especially with social media, right? As we go back to that, everything's okay, everything's perfect, everything's okay. You don't see the backside of that says that, yeah, everything they're showing you is okay, but on the backside they're a complete mess. I'm not afraid to say I don't know something. I'm not afraid to ultimately show a weakness in an area and say I'm not that strong here. Would somebody help me? I'm not afraid to ask for help. Showing that vulnerability is a strength. It allows other people to see you for who you really are, and it allows you to open up yourself for greater partnerships, collaborations, and learning. To say I don't know something, but be willing to learn that. That's strength on you, because now you're learning something that makes you better, instead of saying pretending that you know it and staying the same. So
Right.
yeah, vulnerability and courage, they're not opposites. They go right together. It takes a lot of courage to show vulnerability. It takes a lot of courage to admit I don't know something, or I could be better at this, or I need your help in this. It
Right.
takes courage, and those two things go together. I appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah. No problem. It's my pleasure. One of the things that makes me think about that courage and composure, I think, is one of the things that we think about in leadership is control. We think that leadership means that you have control over things, and I think it's sometimes it's the opposite, right? I think that when you think about leadership is understanding that you do not have control over the situation, but that you can bring your team together and wade through that lack of control to be able to keep composure and understanding of how you muddle through the issue until you have control. And when I think about this, this is where you bring, as Nietzsche would say, that the stars are stars. The stars are built out of chaos, right? He's talking about the literal star, right? And when I think about this is, when I responded to this active shooter situation, and it was complete chaos, right? There's bodies literally in this room and throughout the area, and people just in shock and whatnot. The humans that are alive are looking at this horrific scene, and there's we have to take control of this horrific scene, and it's like one of those things of like having composure to be able to control that scene of complete and utter chaos is, and you yourself, myself, and the people who you're there with, we're humans, and we feel that and we see it, and to be able to lead people to bring them out of that chaos and to bring control and calm to the scene that was utterly horrific and terrifying for them, is what I'm talking about. And that's, you need to be able to be able to work through that leadership in chaos. And I love this quote that you can't control the storm, but you could lead through that. And you, that is the same thing, is the example of leadership under scrutiny, although it may not be the chaos that you're thinking about in a disaster or in this active shooter situation, but you still have to lead through scrutiny, through the criticism that is coming towards your organization. And I'm going to go back to LA County, going through the scrutiny of what occurred after the Palisades and Eden fire, right? The pressure that is coming down through them from the outside of this of those fires, and back in January, and with this after action report. And what does that mean to you, leadership through under scrutiny? What does that mean to you?
Ultimately, it's being able to make decisions that aren't always agreed with by the people that are around you. You're making decisions that could be contradictory to what they feel is the best thing to be doing next. One of the reasons, and this is one of the reasons that you have to be a little bit of tough skin as a leader, is because scrutiny is going to come one way or the other. Everybody's, you can't please everybody. You could be doing everything absolutely right, and you're still going to have people coming at you as if you're not. So it's being able to lead through and make those decisions, even when other people are telling you that's not what I want to do, or that's not what I would do, or that's not what I'm hearing from this other person is the best method to do. You're going to be making decisions, and those decisions will be second guessed, and you
Yes,
have to be
absolutely.
okay with that. You have to be okay with it. You have to be okay with saying, okay, I'm glad, keep informing me of what that other person might be doing, but I'm the one right here in front of making a decision. I'm the one doing it right now. So you have to be okay with that, and understanding that you're not going to make everybody happy. And whether you do everything 100% right or not, you're going to have people coming at you from all directions, saying that you're not doing enough. And when you go back to the LA fires and all that happened, yeah, there was a lot of scrutiny, but a lot of that boiled down to the acts leading up to, right? The stuff that was leading, they knew of all these things that led up to this bad thing happening. And I think especially when it comes to emergency management, a lot of these things come to light when the bad thing happens.
Mm.
And if you're not leading correctly up until the bad thing happens, that all comes to light. And when that light gets shined on it, you're either going to look really bad or you're going to look really good. And I would prefer to look better than worse. And just all the stuff that we do on a day-to-day, that consistent trucking forward, and that consistency in saying, I don't care, and I may care deep down, but it's not going to affect me from doing my job. I'm going to keep doing my job, even though through opposition, even though through scrutiny, even though second guessing, because if I don't, that's the outcome.
Yeah.
The outcome is what we saw happen to how bad it got. And if I'm not doing every day what I can do to fight back against that scrutiny or that negativity or that second guessing, then I'm not doing my job correctly as a leader. Ultimately, I have to be able to look back and know that I did everything I possibly could to prepare for that moment of the bad thing, whatever it may be. And if I can't say that, then I failed. And
Right.
and that's a decision that and a reflection that I don't want to have. And I say this all the time when it comes to regret. Regret is avoidable. Regret is 100% avoidable if you're doing what it takes right now.
Two things on regret. One is, I think I should say, regret to me is the things that you didn't do, for the most part, not the things that you did. And this reminds me of Aristotle when he talks about the virtue of action. And this involves constantly performing action by purpose, by deliberate choice, right? And that, what he's saying here is that it's a virtue. So your action is intentionally doing things, performed deliberately, and that's that. Not just for its own sake, not just because you felt like you needed to do something, not just because you accidentally fell into it. It's the action for it's purposely done. And that's a virtue in his mind. And Aristotle talks about this. And I think that's one of those things like, and for those of you who've listened to me in the past, who've read my stuff, I love philosophy. I minored in it. I should have been a philosopher, but that's the idea here. Is like you wake up in the morning and you deliberately act. You don't just do things out of habit. You do things on purpose. And Marcus Aurelius talks about that as well in some of his meditations, in the idea of you do things with a purposeful heart, right? And as a leader, you have to be purposeful in your actions. And we have to stress that. And when we do things in emergency management as well, is that we have to be purposeful in our actions. Think about what we do and act. And the other side of it too is we're acting with not 100% of the information that we need. And think about that for a second. So we have to have purposeful decisions based upon 20, 30, maybe 40%. Luckily, we can be thankful if we have like 50 or 60% of the information. And then we might have to incrementally change the direction that we're going, right? So virtue and action, purposeful decisions based upon the information that we have at hand. And then we can defend our actions based upon the information that we have. So when the critics do come and say, how could you have made that decision based upon this information? Well, because guess what, Monday morning quarterback? You have 100% of the information in your hand. What would you do if you only had 20% of the information and you had to act now? I'm watching a movie, TV, or last night I was watching a movie on Apple TV about the Paradise Fires. It's called The Lost Bus. And it's so far, I haven't finished it because it was late last night. And there are decisions that are being made in that movie. I know it's a drama and some of it's BS, but it's been so far, it's a decent movie. And they were showing some interactions, some decisions that were being made early on by CAL FIRE and some of the decisions being made by the bus driver, stuff like this. And I think it's really well done. But again, virtue in action. There were decisions that were being made early on in that movie, dramatized, but we're showing decisions that were being made about evacuations and arguments that were being occurred, right? Decisions that are being made with less information that you need to make a complete decision. You cannot wait for more information to come in. Be deliberate in your action. Sorry, I got in the soapbox for a minute.
No, I 100% agree with that, and I think it does boil down to that. We're making decisions based off what's in front of us, and we don't always have the whole picture. But when everything's said and done, and people are Monday morning quarterbacking or they're soft chair quarterbacking, and they're scrutinizing everything that happened, it's because they have the information all in front of them now. Everything has been brought together, and it's usually been brought together by us. So we bring it all together as we're making decisions, as we're working through an incident or a situation, and then when it's all said and done, we say, here's what happened, and then they can say, well, they can look at the whole picture, and then they can make their decisions, their scrutiny, their negative comments, and whatever it may be. But when we're making the decisions and when we're doing the thing, we're doing it with not the whole picture, or with what we think the whole picture does look like. Especially when we're doing preparedness or mitigation, we're thinking, what if this thing happens? What do we need to be working on? What plans do we need to have in place? What preparedness training do we need to do? All this other stuff, right? We're doing all these things, not knowing exactly what is going to happen. Then when it happens, we're making decisions based on what's in front of us. And then after everything's said and done, we're getting scrutiny or negative comments or called before, councils because of the decisions that we made, right? So it's being willing, it's the consistency there, as you're saying, and I wrote a paper on it, on purpose, leading on purpose. It's making those decisions, consistently making the decisions to do what's needed and purposely doing so If we're doing that every day, then when it comes down to it, if they call us for any counsel they want to, and we're good.
All right.
I did all these things. I wrote these plans. I did training. I brought this equipment. I did these resources. I pulled this collaboration. I set up these partnerships. Blah 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 blah. I don't care. Regret's avoidable. I did the thing I did every day, consistently with purpose and initiative. And when it comes down to it, I did my job, and this is how, and I feel good about it. And I can wait. I can go to sleep at night knowing that, because I did my job, as you said, on purpose. And when it goes back to it, man, too, I want to say that we are philosophers. 100%. Me, you, Dr. Collins, a few other people that are in our circle, we're growing the philosophy of emergency management. And I study religiously almost on philosophy, because I feel like the way that we apply our thinking leads to the way we do our actions, which can also lead to the way we get other people to act. That's one of the reasons why I study psychology as well, because it's about influencing human behavior. And communications is so important to me on so many different levels, because how can the communications that I undertake on a daily basis influence the actions of others? That comes from philosophical thinking. So
absolutely,
100% philosophy. We're philosophizing all the time.
Philosophizing? All right.
That's a real word, dude. If you don't know that, should I take back my statement? We're philosophizers.
Philosophizers. So real leaders don't lead to be seen, Dan.
They don't.
They lead to serve. And I know that you are a big servant leader guy like I am. I want you to end this out today. So take it away. But I want you to, I'm gonna leave you with one question, right? And I love this quote. If you're reflecting, you're already in the arena. So Dan, close us out. What do you think about that quote?
Well, the quote itself, I mean, you can view that however you'd like. When it comes down to when you're reflecting, you're already in the arena. You're reflecting on decisions that you're either making or decisions that you want to make. So as you're leading through whatever you've been called upon to lead through, if you're reflecting, you're already in there doing it. You're going to the grindstone. You're making decisions, and when you're reflecting on those decisions, it's whether or not do I continue doing what I'm doing? Do I change it up? Do I make a shift? Do I bring other people in? You're constantly reflecting on decisions that you either have already made or are going to make. If you're not reflecting on decisions that you are going to make, just because it's a set up the way you see it, and I'm just going to go towards the grindstone, but then something happens and you don't reflect to say, I need to change my direction a little bit, you're not doing anybody a genuine service. So if we're reflecting, is because we're doing the job, and we're reflecting based off of the feedback that we're getting from what's happening, from the decisions that we're making, from the actions that are being taken, from the interactions of the people that we're hopefully guiding and influencing. So that reflection comes from seeing that data start coming in, seeing that those decisions and the consequences of those decisions, and how it's the cause and effect, right? You do this thing and this thing happens. Do we keep going or do we make a change? So that's how it is when you're in there and you're doing it. You got to make these little decisions consistently based off of the feedback that you're getting in those moments, and it could be really large. It could be a lot of data, or it could be minuscule. And being able to actively make those decisions in the midst of change. Change is constantly happening. You're out there, as we said, we might not have all the information, and we're making decisions, and then new information comes in. We got to make new decisions. So we got to change our actions, and we got to change people that we're talking to. And we got to change the approach. That's what I think that means. It means that we're making decisions, and we're making the changes, and we're making the minute shifts based on the information that we're seeing by actually being in the arena. And when we say the arena, I mean, if you're fighting this guy in the arena and you're fighting him and you're getting your butt kicked, might need to change your approach on how you're doing things, and how you approach them, and how you're fighting them, and how your defense and your offense. And we can go even further into that just because of my background, but it really does change the way you do things based off of what's happening based on your approach. And that happens based on the decisions that we're making, the actions that are taken, and how we evaluate whether or not it's working or not. It may not be working. Do we need to change it? It may be working very, very well. Do we do more of it, or do we cut it back, or do we have somebody else take over? There's so many things that just go through when you're making these, when you're going through and you're actually, these things are in front of you. And I think that if you're reflecting, yeah, you're in the arena because you're doing it. Now, are you reflecting, like you said, go back to the how we started this thing as a critic who's reflecting on something that they had nothing to do with. They got to
Right.
watch it from afar, and now they're criticizing and reflecting on it. It's so much different than being the guy in the arena doing the job.
Absolutely. All right, Dan, everybody have a wonderful day. Please stay safe. And as always, stay hydrated.
When the sirens scream out loud, or the voice that breaks the cloud, heads held high when things go wrong, will guide you through its strength and song. Disaster strikes without a sound, chaos reigns but we're around. Public safety in our hands, steady strong in every land. Emergency management, we're the guide in the night. In storms and strife we